Welcome back to another episode of the Witching Hour Wagon. Today we have 10 real-life encounters with the shadow people, so lay back and enjoy. Number 1. Sniggety. During the late 1960s, Sniggety encountered shadow people on 3 separate occasions. The first time, they caught one looking through their bedroom window before disappearing. The second was a few months later, when they woke to 5 shadow people lurking aimlessly around their bedroom. The third and final time was late at a summer camp. They were laying in bed in their bungalow when shadowy figures appeared and began walking in circles around their bed. In all 3 occasions, the figures were pitch black, darker than the dimly lit room. This user has experienced all they want from shadow people and hopes to never encounter one again. Number 2. Anathium. Anathium has had a few encounters with shadow people, but there is only one that truly terrified them. On a summer evening, they stayed up late watching television with their sister. As they got up to go to bed, they passed by the front door and saw a Native American man standing in the frame. He stood at about 6 feet, wore a black suit with an old-fashioned top hat, and had long hair and sharp blue eyes. The user screamed, making their sister jump and throw a salt shaker at the figure. The shadow person's face fell into what seemed like a sorrowful expression, then shimmered away through the front door. Later, when describing the experience to their father, he said the shadow person sounded like a description of his great uncle who died when he was young. Number 3. Ice Fee. When Ice Fee was 5 or 6, they went into their backyard to play on their trampoline and saw 3 men. They were standing side by side, wearing matching hats, and were pitch black. They yelled at the creepy figures to get off. Their parents heard the shouts and raced downstairs. To this day, the parents recall how frightened their kid was. Ice Fee told their parents that there were people on the trampoline, but when they looked back, the shadow people had vanished. They didn't step on the trampoline for 2 years, but this isn't the end. Their grandmom described waking up to a dark figure standing above her many times at their old house. One time, their mother woke and saw a similar figure standing over their dad. They have moved houses since, but the shadow people seemed to have followed. Number 4. Lostful Codex. After a poor night of sleep, Lostful Codex laid down midday to take a nap. They recall a strange feeling in their head, but believed it to be a side effect of sleep deprivation. Then, from the corner of their room, they saw South Park, as if there was a television sitting right beside their bed, although there isn't. A ringing and high-pitched whooshing sound joined in the chorus. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't lift their arms or head. Then they heard a knock at the window. Behind the glass pane stood a dark, faceless figure. A second figure of identical stature entered through the bedroom door and sat at the edge of the bed. The shadow person spoke. I would be afraid too. This is what nightmares are made from. Lostful Codex was confident that it was a dream, but it seemed inescapable. The room faded in and out. Then the user woke. It was easily the scariest experience they had ever had with lucid dreaming. Number 5. MacWeirdo 42. MacWeirdo 42's earliest memory involves a shadow person. They were 2 or 3 years old at the time and recall waking to see a dark shadow on the wall beside their crib. A shadow with bright white eyes. It started moving toward them. They moved to the other side of the crib, but another shadow person was approaching from that side as well. They were pitch black against an already shadowed wall. With nowhere to go, they crouched in the center of their crib. Their parents recall MacWeirdo 42 telling them the shadows were trying to get them. Number 6. Wagon. At 3 a.m. one morning, Wagon woke and went to the kitchen to get some water. On their way, they stumbled upon a shadow person sitting in the recliner in the family room. They had been seeing shadow people their entire life, so this sudden appearance was not startling. They stood still for a couple of minutes to be certain it was indeed a shadow person. As their eyes adjusted to the dark, it became clearer a shadow person was sitting in their living room staring at them. They started moving toward it. The figure seemed undaunted. When they were 3 feet apart, the shadow person evaporated. Number 7. So Says Lucifer. In the 6th grade, So Says Lucifer attended a barbecue at a local park. After a day of playing with their classmates, it was time to head home. The older kids, including this user, were tasked with collecting the younger kids and getting them ready to leave. The park wasn't that big, so finding all the kids proved easy. But then, things took a turn toward the paranormal. About halfway across the park, they saw a dark figure of what appeared to be a toddling small child. Thinking it was one of the kids they were looking for, the user and their friend ran after the shadow, yelling at it to stop. When the figure reached the edge of the park, it turned white, dropped to all fours, ran up the tree like a cat, and leaped over the wall. The user and their friend ran away, terrified, unsure of exactly what they saw. Number 8. Mr. Tibble's 32. One night when Mr. Tibble's 32 was 5 and trying to fall asleep, a shadow person appeared before their window. It seemed harmless, pacing back and forth in front of the window, appearing as if someone was floating just outside the window. But the room was on the 2nd floor, 20 feet off the ground. No living human could be outside their window. This continued to happen. Sometimes more than one would appear, and the 2 shadow people would interact. The user didn't realize what they were seeing at the time. They just believed it to be a childish fantasy, like seeing Peter Pan. It was only recently that they were able to pinpoint exactly what they had seen, and it was no lost boy. Number 9. Pine Wolf 14. Pine Wolf 14 has encountered shadow people more than once. Often they hear them breathing or feel the shadow hovering over them while they sleep. They have heard whispers saying, "Don't move," in the middle of the night. Wisely, the user never did. But on one night, this changed. Instead of lying still, they rolled over and came face to face with a shadow person. If the two had been any closer, their foreheads would have been touching. This opened their mouth to scream, but there were hands around their throat, choking them. They started to thrash around, punching and kicking at the shadow person, until suddenly the shadow person vanished. Number 10. Mistress of Dark. A few years ago, Mistress of Dark was sleeping over at a friend's house and had trouble sleeping. As they were lying awake, a tall, solid black silhouette entered the bedroom. It wore a top hat and long coat and looked like a male figure. He sat in a chair beside the bed and stared at them. After a few seconds, he started talking. The user doesn't remember the conversation exactly, as the experience took place 5 years ago. But it was a harmless encounter, and the shadow person seemed genuinely interested in them. Then a second shadow person appeared, the same black silhouette, but this time a woman. Strangely, she was crawling. The man sitting beside in the chair told them not to look and the woman wouldn't notice them. She was not a good entity. After a while, the woman left, and at dawn, the shadow man too vanished. That brings us to the end of this episode of the Witching Hour Wagon. More bone-chilling and terrifying stories are on their way soon. And as always, you can send your own scary story to the email below. So subscribe and press that like button. Thanks for tuning in. Be wary and take care, because something wicked is always on its way.